Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Kent. We are a spiritual community that seeks to be diverse and inclusive as we inspire love, work for justice, and grow together in community. I am Commissioned Lay Minister Lori Merkin-McGee. I'm joined in welcoming you this morning by my wife, Wendy Merkin-McGee. It takes many hands to create worship every week. Wendy and I would like to thank everyone involved with today's service: music director Emily, accompanist Vanessa, all of the wonderful musicians and singers playing for us today, our last-minute worship associate Elaine, our ushers and greeters Bonnie and Randy, our tech team Julie, Brad, Dave, and our church administrator, Mary Beth. Now let us take a moment to breathe, to enter into this time of community once again, and to invite Spirit to be present among us and open our hearts to life and the gift of this day. Come, let us worship together. Yom HaShoah, observed on the 27th day of Nisan on the Jewish calendar, commemorates the 6 million Jewish lives lost during the horrors of the Holocaust. We have all heard at least some of the stories about what happened in the Jewish ghettos or at the concentration camps. Stories of people losing everything in seconds, including, in many cases, their lives. 6 million Jews. The number is hard to wrap one's mind around. I'm not sure we can even conceive of that many people. That's like the entire city of Los Angeles losing its population nearly twice over. As hard as it is to try to imagine such a large number of people, it is harder still to remember that each and every one of those people had a full life. They were someone's child, mother, father, sibling, aunt, uncle, grandparent. Someone loved them. Someone valued them. They each had a story. Wendy and I are going to share just a few of these stories with you this morning. Before we do that, however, I just want to name the tension, anxiety, and fear around the ongoing conflict happening between Israel and Palestine. I want to acknowledge that there are many different opinions in this room about this struggle and that no one has a perfect solution for it. It is my personal opinion that this conflict is far more complicated and nuanced than we as Americans can understand. It is our hope that no matter where we stand on this issue, we can set that aside this morning to honor the bravery, resilience, and hope of the Jewish people during the Holocaust. As Unitarian Universalists, we light a flame within a chalice to unite us in worship. It reminds us of our ongoing search for the light of truth within us and among us. The chalice is also a light to guide us on our shared journey and a reminder that we are all interconnected in the great web of existence of which we are all a part. As Christy lights our shared chalice, I invite those on Zoom to light your home chalice. Please join me in this responsive reading by Anastasia Baroche. We kindle this flame not only because I'll read this part and you read the all part. Sorry. We kindle this chalice not only because it originated in antiquity, but because this symbol combats malice. This burning flame represented hope during the weakness of World War II. A sign of refuge and even death was circumvented, if only for that night. This emblem, a flame in a chalice encircled twice, assured wary refugees fleeing Nazi persecution that for a time they had found safety and respite. Today, this beacon shining bright reminds us to summon the strength to extend care and love to those who need forthright. We ignite this flame today for our shared ministry. Today, Jews around the world will gather to memorialize and pray for the victims of the Holocaust. Yom HaShoah, which translates to the Day of the Calamity, is a time to reflect on the 6 million Jewish lives lost. Before each of our 6 stories today, we will light a yellow candle. Yellow symbolizes the yellow star of David that the Jews were forced to wear during World War II. Each candle represents 1 million lives. I invite Claudia to come forward to light the first candle.
Good morning. My name is Wendy Merkin McGee. I am Lori's wife, if I haven't met you before. In 2015, I was very fortunate to be accepted to a seminar for Holocaust educators at Yad Vashem, the National Holocaust Center in Jerusalem, Israel. During the 19-day seminar, we were able to spend a couple of days with Holocaust survivors. One of these survivors was Tibi Ram. Born in Czechoslovakia in 1930, Tibi was 13 years old when Germany invaded. He and his family were sent to Auschwitz concentration camp. Tibi was eventually sent on a death march to Bergen-Belsen, from which he was liberated by the British Army in April 1945. Shortly after liberation, Tibi immigrated to the pre-state Israel. He was very proud of serving in the Israeli military and fighting in every war for Israel. During our time with Tibi, we asked many questions. Every time we asked something, he would change the answer around. For example, one participant asked about winters in Auschwitz. Tibi replied, the winters were really bad. It was so cold, and we didn't have any warm clothing. But one day, I walked outside of the barracks and noticed a small purple flower peeking out of the snow. I knew spring was coming. Another participant asked Tibi to describe the death march that led him to Bergen-Belsen. His response was, I don't really want to talk about that, but I would like to talk about fighting in the war for independence in 1948. This type of question and response discussion continued for a little while longer. Finally, someone asked him why he changed the answers around to something different that he wanted to talk about. His answer to this question has stuck with me since that day. Tibi responded, The Holocaust was very bad. It was 98% bad. But if I looked, I could find 2% of something good. I always look for the 2%. Since my conversation with Tibby, I try to live my life looking for the 2%.
I invite Kathy to come forward to light candle number 2, please. Thank you. This is the story of Janusz Korczak. Janusz Korczak was born in Warsaw, Poland in 1878 to a prominent and well-educated Jewish family. During his lifetime, he was accomplished as a physician, a children's author, and eventually administrator of a Jewish children's orphanage, Dom Siriot, located in the Warsaw Ghetto. On 22 July 1942, on Korczak's birthday, extermination in the ghetto began. On 6 August 1942, the Nazi occupiers led Korczak, all of his co-workers, and 200 orphans from Dom Siriot out into the street. The last man who saw Korczak before boarding the transport train, Nachum Remba, says this about Korczak. All the children were ordered in groups of 4, with Korczak at the head, with his eyes facing upward. He held 2 children by their hands and led the march. Throughout the march to the train platform, ghetto administrators and even Nazis told Janusz that he didn't have to go. They all knew who he was and respected him. Korczak continued to walk to the train, staring straight ahead with his children. The group from the orphanage was the only one that walked to that train calmly and with dignity. All of them were transported in covered, crowded wagons with barbed wire windows to the Treblinka extermination camp. There is one, only one, named memorial amongst the 750,000 unmarked jagged stones in the symbolic cemetery in Treblinka. Janusz Korczak and children. The educator and doctor became a symbol of the martyrdom of the deported and murdered people. Janusz Korczak remained faithful to his children and vocation to the end.
I invite you now to make yourselves comfortable in your seats, to put your feet flat on the floor, to close your eyes or lower your gaze as you are comfortable, and to contemplate the mysteries of life and to be silent together. Each week we set aside time to reflect upon the personal. We may have sorrows, struggles, or losses that are breaking our hearts. We may have joys and celebrations that make our hearts sing. If you are on Zoom and have a joy or sorrow to share, please use the chat box. Trudy shares a sorrow that her baby Stephen's birthday is tomorrow. We pray for Trudy and Charles and Justin and Stella and Hunter as they remember Stephen's life. Adelicia Raven Luna asks for continued prayers for her partner, Alyssa. Our hearts are with you. This is from everyone. Thanks to Trudy for months of work to pull off the amazing auction that happened last night. We are so eternally grateful to you, Trudy. And Justin shares that he had a great time at the auction last night. I invite you now to speak aloud the names of those who come on your hearts and minds this morning. And I have a personal joy to share with you this morning. A few days ago, on May 1st, I celebrated my 19th anniversary with you all here at church. With gratitude for these and every blessing we receive in life, for the gift of life itself, for the companionship of one another on life's journey, for the beauty of this world and this day of possibility, we raise our hearts in gladness with the word, Amen.
Please join me in the spirit of prayer. Spirit of remembrance, Spirit of all that we hold sacred and holy, be present in our hearts and in our minds this day. We commemorate our 6 million Jewish brothers and sisters, their bodies and their souls lost to intolerance and taken by hatred. The atrocity is etched in the lives of all Jews the world over. It is simply unimaginable, unforgettable, and must not be allowed in history to repeat itself. We say, with love, with sorrow, we remember. We remember. We remember. Amen and shalom.
And it's by Sol Weiss. And I found this piece last fall when some of us in this community were preparing to lead some discussion groups on Israel and Palestine and the search for peace in that conversation. And I wanted to find and represent some of the Jewish voices for peace. And this was one of the songs that I found that resonated with me, and this is what Sol says about their music. Water provides life. From the rain, the dew, the ocean, water heals and holds and sings so many songs through us. I am grateful to the waters for being such a teacher and invite you to honor them with this song. The Hebrew at the end is the traditional prayer said for a mikveh, a ritual immersion or bath, and the translation is, "Blessed are you, source of creation of the universe, who sanctifies us through the mitzvah and has shown us immersion." Great waters pour over me, heal my broken places, make me whole again. Great waters pour over me, for I am your child. Make me yours again. Great waters pour over me, prepare me for this love you've given me, for I again. Great waters, pour over me. Heal my broken places. Make me whole again. Great waters, pour over me. For I am your child. Make me yours again. Great waters, pour over me. Prepare me for this love you've given me, for I am yours again. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ruach haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al hatfilah. Great waters, pour over me. Heal my broken places. Make me whole again. Make me yours again. For I am yours again.
Will Brittany please come forward and light our third candle? If you've been around Unitarian Universalism for any length of time, you most likely have heard the name Norbert Čapek. Reverend Čapek founded the Unitarian Church in Prague, Czechoslovakia in 1922. He actually also was the author of the words of our opening hymn. After the conclusion of the First World War, Čapek and his family returned home to their native Czechoslovakia from the United States and founded the first Unitarian Church in Czechoslovakia. In June 1923, as his congregation was preparing to take its summer holiday for worship, Čapek wanted a ritual to bind them together across their deep diversity. He created the flower communion and first instituted it on June 24th, 1923. Inviting everyone to bring a simple flower and place it in a large vase as they entered the church, Čapek then preached about their common unity in heartfelt fellowship, regardless of race, class, or other distinction. And then he encouraged the congregation to come forward, each taking a different flower than the one they had brought. In 1941, the Nazis arrested Čapek and his 28-year-old daughter, Zora, and charged them with listening to and disseminating foreign broadcasts. Čapek himself was also charged with high treason on account of his public preaching. Zora served her sentence and survived the war. But when Čapek's sentence was received at the Gestapo headquarters in Prague, the case officer wrote on the file, "Send this prisoner to Dachau. His return is unwished." On July 5, 1942, Čapek arrived in Dachau. On October 12th of that same year, Norbert Čapek was put on an invalid transport and taken to another site to be murdered by poison gas. There is no proof of this, but likely there is truth to the story that in Dachau, Čapek celebrated his final flower communion, inviting those people, many of his fellow prisoners, to find whatever bit of green or beauty could be found in the prison yard, to make a simple pile, and to take with them some reminder of hope and humanity and the love of God.
I invite Scott to come forward to light our fourth candle. Le Chambon, France. This is a story of hope. All over Europe, a small number of individuals tried to save Jews, but in Le Chambon, a village in southern France, the entire community became involved in rescue. Le Chambon was a Protestant village in a predominantly Roman Catholic region, which before and during the war was a center of tourism. Now its residents turned their tiny mountain village into a hiding place for Jews from every part of Europe. Between 1940 and 1944, Le Chambon and the other nearby villages provided refuge for more than 5,000 people fleeing Nazi persecution. 3,500 of them were Jews. Magda Trocmé, the wife of the local minister, explained how it began. Those of us who received the first Jews did what we thought had to be done, nothing more complicated. It was not decided from one day to the next what we would have to do. There were so many people in the village who needed help. How could we refuse them? A person doesn't sit down and say, "I'm going to do this and this and that." We had no time to think. When a problem came, we had to solve it immediately. Sometimes people ask me, "How did you make a decision?" There was no decision to make. The issue was, do you think we are all brothers or not? Do you think it is unjust to turn in the Jews or not? Then let us try to help. Almost everyone in the community of 5,000 took part in the effort. Even the children were involved. When a Nazi official tried to organize a Hitler youth camp in the village, the students told him that they make no distinction between Jews and non-Jews. It is contrary to gospel teachings. The majority of the Jewish refugees were children. The villagers provided them with food, shelter, and fake identity papers. They also made sure that those who they sheltered were involved as much as possible in the life of the town, in part to avoid arousing suspicion from other visitors. Whenever residents of Le Chambon learned of an upcoming police raid, they hid those they were protecting in the surrounding countryside. The values of the village were perhaps best expressed by its minister, André Trocmé, who concluded his sermons with these words: "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, and with all your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Go practice it." In February 1943, the police arrested André Trocmé and his assistant, Edvard Thies. Although they were released after 28 days, the Gestapo continued to monitor their activities. In summer 1943, the Gestapo offered a reward for André Trocmé's capture, which forced him into hiding for 10 months. Many knew where he was, but no one turned him in. Let us join our voices in our reflection hymn. It's number 28, "View the Starry Realm."
View the starry realm of heaven, shining distant empires sing, skies song of celestial children, turns each winter into spring, turns each winter into spring. Great you are beyond conception, God of God and God of stars. My soul soars with your perception. I escape from prison bars. I escape from prison bars. You, the one within all forming, in my heart and mind and breath. You, my guide through hate's fierce storming, courage in both life and death. Courage in both life and death. Life is yours, in you I grow tall. Seed will come to fruit, I know. Trust that after winter snowfall, walls will melt and truth will flow. Walls will melt and truth will flow.
Will Kurt please come forward and light our 5th candle? Frida Kleiger was born in Warsaw into an Orthodox Jewish family in 1921. She had 2 older sisters, one of whom was married and had a young son named Lutek. In November 1940, the ghetto was created in Warsaw, and the living conditions for the Jews deteriorated. Frida and her sisters survived the Great Deportation from Warsaw in the summer of 1942. Her father was deported to Treblinka and murdered there. In April 1943, with the outbreak of the Warsaw Ghetto Revolt, Frida and her sisters found refuge in one of the bunkers. In May 1943, they were caught by the Germans and sent to Majdanek death camp, where her married sister and nephew were murdered. In the summer of 1943, Frida and her surviving sister were transferred to the Auschwitz-Birkenau death camp. In December 1944, they were sent on a death march to Ravensbrück concentration camp in Germany. In January of 1945, Frida and her sister were transferred to Bergen-Belsen. They were liberated by the British Army on April 15, 1945. Frida met another Holocaust survivor, Ramek, at the displaced person camp of Bergen-Belsen, and together they had the first Jewish wedding in this camp on December 18, 1945. They came to Israel on Aliyah, a pilgrimage to the Holy Land, in 1948, and both served in the War of Independence. Frida and her husband had 2 children, 4 grandchildren, and 3 great-grandchildren. In 2015 and again in 2018, when Wendy went to a seminar for Holocaust educators at Yad Vashem in Jerusalem, she was extremely lucky to meet Frida Kleiger. She shared her amazing story of survival with the group. I believe that's your photo. Is that your photo? No, not your photo. Okay. It is Frida, yes. When someone asked her how she survived, she responded with this: God saved me. When I was given my tattoo in Auschwitz, God gave me life. The numbers in her identification tattoo added up to 18, which is a lucky number in Hebrew as it represents the word Chai. Chai in Hebrew means life. Sadly, Frida passed away just days before her 103rd birthday in February of this year.
That's the survivor. Yes. She was amazing. I'd like to invite Trish up to light our 6th and final candle. Jacob Cooperman was living in Łódź when the Germans invaded Poland on September 1st, 1939. He was working in the family's butcher shop, which provided a good life for his wife and 2 small children. Excuse me. Shortly after the invasion, Jake was working in the shop when a couple of Nazi soldiers came into the store and demanded to be given some meat out of one of the cases. Jake refused. They began arguing, and Jake pushed one of the soldiers, who fell and hit his head. Jake ran home and told his wife what happened. He told her he needed to leave immediately for Russia with his brother. The 2 headed to Russia and stayed there until they felt it was safe to return home. While trying to cross the border back into Poland, Jake was arrested by the Russian police. He was accused of being a spy and sent to a work camp in Siberia. Jake's brother was able to escape capture and return to Łódź. After working as slave labor for about 1.5 years, the Siberian camp was closed because of the need for men to fight the Germans who were invading from the west. Jake was moved to a labor camp in Lithuania. While Jake was in Lithuania, he had to steal bread from the kitchen in order to have enough food to survive. One day, while Jake was in the camp, the guards started walking towards him. They had heard about the theft. Jake had a loaf of bread that he had just stolen. A young woman, whom he had never met, walked up to Jake and took the bread from him without the guards seeing the exchange. She hid the bread in her dress while the guards searched Jake. Her action saved his life. When the war ended, all camp prisoners throughout the Nazi-controlled territories were told to return to their homes. Jake returned to Łódź, only to learn that his wife and children were murdered at Chełmno extermination camp. One day, Jake was walking through the city when he ran into a young woman that he recognized. It was the same woman from the camp who had saved his life. Her name was Rosa. She had also lost her family to the Nazis. Together, they left Lodz for the displaced persons camp near Munich, Germany. In 1946, Jake and Rosa were married. In 1947, Samuel Cooperman was born. A couple of years later, they had a daughter named Dora. The little family immigrated to Sioux City, Iowa, where Jake and Rosa lived until Jake's death in the 1980s.
These are but a tiny sample of the stories of hope and resilience to come out of the horrors of the Holocaust. The human capacity for finding just one small thing to live for is astounding to me. I have to admit that I only knew the basics about the Holocaust before I met Wendy. I knew about Anne Frank, Oskar Schindler, Elie Wiesel, but not about the many other prominent survivors. I knew that both Jews and non-Jews risked their lives to save others from almost certain death, but not who or why or how. I was aware that Nazis persecuted other groups, but not that they actively hunted down European Jews. There are so many people who acted with bravery, defiance, and humanity to fight the Nazi regime. There are so many stories of community, faith, and even love emerging from this atrocity.
In 2014, the school where I was teaching had a day-long seminar about a Holocaust curriculum that was designed for middle and high school students. After the presentation, I spent some time talking to the presenter. She told me about a 19-day intensive seminar that really dove into the curriculum that would be presented the following year. The seminar took place at Yad Vashem. I did some research and determined I would never be able to attend because of the cost. About a month later, at my family's Thanksgiving dinner, I told my uncle about the seminar and how amazing it would be to attend. My uncle had recently retired from his job as the executive vice president of the Youngstown Area Jewish Federation. Upon his retirement, a scholarship fund was set up in his name in order to help with Holocaust and Jewish education. My uncle proceeded to give me the information to apply for this. In January 2015, I received news that I was the first recipient of the Samuel Cooperman Scholarship Fund. My trip, excluding airfare, was paid for. The immigrant son of Jake and Rosa Cooperman and my uncle gave me just what I needed to continue my Holocaust education in Israel. Many people ask why I study and teach about such a dark time in history, especially for families like mine, who both perished and survived the Holocaust. The answer is simple. Someone needs to continue to share stories like Tibby's, Frida's, Janis Korczak's, and Jake and Rosa Cooperman. Why should that person not be me? Every time I share the horrors and stories of the Holocaust, I am reminded of my Uncle Sam, the man who helped me realize how important this work is. That is why I include him in my stories and why I continue to learn and teach about the Holocaust.
They say that hope is the thing with feathers, but a social media user says this: people speak of hope as if it is this delicate, ephemeral thing made of whispers and spider webs. It's not. Hope has dirt on her face, blood on her knuckles, the grit of the cobblestones in her hair, and just spat out a tooth as she rises for another go. This is the version of hope that I imagine most people had during the Nazi occupation of Europe, rising up again and again against insurmountable odds. Yom HaShoah honors the 6 million souls lost in this fight for freedom and liberation. We must never forget. We must never let this happen again. Amen, amen, shalom. Our spiritual community thrives in its shared life of worship, community, and ministry, as each of us participates in the circle of giving and receiving. This is possible due to your generous gifts of money, time, and care for each other, and the recognition that we are all connected. To help others in our community thrive, we also give to agencies and organizations in Kent and beyond that serve those in need. May's special offering is for Every Town for Gun Safety, which is a movement of nearly 10 million mayors, teachers, survivors, gun owners, students, and everyday Americans. The movement works to end gun violence and save lives. In the spirit of gratitude for the gift of one another and this community and the abundance that makes generosity possible, we will now give and receive the offering. Will the ushers please come forward?
The Holocaust is a stunning reminder of the tragic results of prejudice and hate toward other people, but it is also a reminder that hope, held firm, will eventually reign victorious over the greatest of odds. Some of the words from this song, the first 4 lines, were inscribed on the walls of a cellar in Cologne, Germany, where Jews were hiding from the Nazis during World War II. Hope was all they had to hold on to. Hope was their only bridge to a brighter tomorrow.
indeed, may someday there be shalom. Please join me in our words for extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. May we carry these in our hearts and minds until we are together again. Our closing hymn is Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. The words, both in English and in Hebrew, are in your order of service. Please join in this most beautiful hymn.
Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Ve'al kulam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Ve'al kulam. Shalom Aleinu. Ve'al kulam. Shalom, Shalom. Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Shalom, Shalom. Still peace will come upon us. Still peace will come upon us. Still peace will come upon us, everyone. Still peace will come upon us. Still peace will come upon us. Still peace will come upon us, everyone. Peace will come upon the whole wide world. Yeah, peace will come. Peace will come upon the whole wide world. Yes, peace will come. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Ve'al kulam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Ve'al kulam.
These are the words of Michelle Obama. Excuse me. You may not always have a comfortable life, and you will not always be able to solve all of the world's problems at once. But don't ever underestimate the importance you can have, because history has shown us that courage can be contagious and hope can take on a life of its own.
And now, trusting in the power of hope and resilience to overcome evil, let us go forth to continue inspiring love, seeking justice, and growing in community. May it be so. Amen. Blessed be. And I see the light of hope in you.